The blender was still roaring when my phone buzzed at 6:14 a.m. I held the lid with one hand and my life with the other. The text previewed over the lock screen like a slap. Your wedding deposit bounced. I killed the blender. The kitchen fell into that empty, humming quiet you only hear before sunrise. Another vibration and email. My gut tightened. Love is messy. Money isn't. Numbers tell the truth even when people don't. Would you trust a number over a kiss? I opened the text first. It wasn't a scam. It was the venue owner, the woman with salt and pepper hair who shook my hand and called me the organized bride. She wrote that the bank returned the payment and asked if we intended to move forward or release the date. My fingers hovered. My face felt hot, like I'd stepped too close to the stove. I called Mark. He answered with a sleepy smile in his voice. He said it had to be a glitch. He said banks make mistakes all the time. He chuckled, soft, careless. Babe, don't stress. I'll handle it after the gym. That laugh rolled over me like cologne I didn't want to wear. I wanted to believe him. Instead, I opened my laptop. Our budget spreadsheet sat where I'd left it, color-coded tabs, notes, vendor lines, timestamps. People post selfies. I post clean ledgers. The venue line should have shown the deposit cleared 5 days ago. It did. And yet the email said otherwise. So, what was I looking at, bad data or bad faith? I checked the bank portal. The transaction existed in the history, and then my eyes snagged on a second entry. Reversal. Initiated yesterday, 4:12 p.m. Not by the bank. By the account holder. My mouth went dry. You know that feeling when your stomach drops, but your brain keeps politely asking, are we sure? I reran the numbers. A triangle of expenses, the florist, the photographer, the venue looked off by small amounts, 20 here, 40 there. Penny-sized shadows. If you skim a lake with a fingertip, you barely leave a trace. Unless you know where to look. Mark texted again. Seriously, don't spiral. I'll fix it. I typed back, which bank? Then I deleted it. Asking is a promise to believe the answer. Instead, I replayed the last week. Jenna, my maid of honor, had dropped by 3 times to help. She loves checklists, she loves wine, she loves my printer. She also loves being useful in ways that keep her in the center of the room. The kind of useful that collects keys and passwords and thanks. I remembered her laughing, saying, God, I could run your life. She said it like a joke. I laughed like I didn't hear the hunger. I opened my printer queue history and export folder. Most people don't realize how long machines remember us. There was a hidden folder I hadn't created, short name, lowercase, underscored W2. Inside, PDF copies of vendor invoices I had sent, plus updated versions I hadn't. Different totals by small margins. Same logos. Same due dates. Not the same bank details. My pulse found a rhythm against my jaw. I clicked the properties on one file. Author, Jenna S. Maybe it was a PDF tool default. Maybe it wasn't. I pressed my finger against the countertop to steady my hands. The laminate felt cool and smug, like it knew more than I did. I called the venue owner. I didn't ask for sympathy, just metadata. She was kind anyway. She read me the note left on her account yesterday. Caller confirmed to reroute deposit, said bride requested. The name on the call log was listed as event coordinator. Not mine. Not anyone I'd hired. I ended the call and listened to the refrigerator purr. It's amazing how loud your house is when trust goes quiet. If I confronted Mark now, he'd talk. If I confronted Jenna, she'd cry. I didn't need noise. I needed proof. I opened the webcam app. The tiny green light blinked like a heartbeat. I set screen recording, aimed at the spreadsheet, then the bank portal, then that hidden folder. I whispered the time and date into the mic the way a surgeon says, scalpel. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning clarity. There's a difference you only learn when it hurts. Before I closed the laptop, one more notification slid in, another vendor asking about a change in payment method. I stared at the message until the words blurred and pulled back into focus. Would you have called him or her? I took a long breath, reached for my coat, and made a different choice. I didn't hit send. I hit record. The door clicked behind me like a promise I could still keep. I didn't grab makeup. I grabbed my laptop, a charger, and a quiet corner of the living room. I kept my voice low, like the walls were listening. When trust is shaky, even drywall feels nosy. I started with the florist. I wrote a clean, friendly note. Please ignore any updated payment methods unless they came from me directly. I added one line that felt like glue on paper. CC me on any future changes. I hit send and stared at the cursor. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. The florist replied with a little sunflower emoji and a forwarded email attached. We already got a change request yesterday, she wrote, from your coordinator. The forwarded thread made my throat go cold. The sender was a Gmail account I'd never seen, Jenna. Organizer, and the signature line said Event Coordinator, Ashford and Bloom. A cute fake company. Ashford. Mark's last name. I scrolled the headers. Most people don't. They're boring until they aren't. Nestled between the lines was a small slip, reply to, Mark. Ashford. Personal@gmail. Jenna had sent it, but replies would land in Mark's lap. That's not a glitch. That's choreography. Would you have read it twice, or once was enough? I took screenshots with the timestamp floating like a watermark over my morning. The printer fan ticked, like it wanted to be useful. My hands didn't shake. I was past shaking. There's a calm that arrives when your brain stops asking for comfort and starts asking for order. The bank opened at 9. I couldn't wait. I called the support line and ran my voice through honey. I asked for the reversal details as if I was confirming a recipe. The rep was careful, but money leaves footprints. She explained that the reversal was authenticated by the mobile app. Not random. Not external. A device on our account. She read the device nickname, Mark's iPhone. I thanked her like she'd handed me a cup of tea. I ended the call and listened. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a truck coughed. Inside me, something settled into place, like a heavy book finding its shelf. I moved to building a test. I created a fresh invoice, clean branding, nothing flashy. I changed one line item label to something no one could guess, Autumn Sky Retainer. I added a transparent tracking pixel that would ping me the second someone opened it. Then I forwarded the updated invoice to the address in the florist's thread with a polite note. Per yesterday's call, here's the final version. Thanks for coordinating. 5 minutes. Nothing. 10 minutes. My phone buzzed again, the florist one more time. She apologized for any confusion and said something else that mattered. The coordinator had called from a number that matched the one she'd used last summer to book flowers for Jenna's birthday party. She saved it then. She saved everything. People think kindness is soft. It's also an archive. I added that note to my growing file. Screenshots, email headers, the printer metadata with author, Jenna S., and the bank log pointing to Mark's phone. A pattern was forming like frost on glass, thin, pretty, and sharp if you touched it wrong. Then the tracking ping landed. Opened. 7:02 a.m. Location. Irevale CrossFit, Network, Guess Wi-Fi. Mark's gym. The same laugh that told me not to spiral probably echoed off those rubber floors while he read the trap. I pictured the black mats, the chalk dust, the music too loud at an hour when truth prefers whispering. He told me not to worry. He was handling it. He was, in a way. I leaned back and let the ceiling come into focus. My mind clicked through the week like a flipbook. Jenna at my kitchen table, toying with my planner, asking to print one last thing. Mark texting me receipts he never used to touch. Their sudden love for tasks that used to bore them. 2 people, 1 pattern. My phone lit up again. Mark, gym done. Coffee? I stared at the screen until the letters softened. I wanted to type back 3 words, Irevale sees you, and be done. Instead, I typed, grab me the usual. Control is a temperature. I kept mine cool. While I waited, I called the venue owner back and asked if she had a recording of the reroute call. She didn't. But she had a note. The coordinator had mispronounced my last name and then corrected herself mid-sentence. Jenna does that when she rushes. She thinks speed is power. It's actually where the evidence lives. The front door opened. Cold air followed Mark into the hallway. I heard the paper crinkle as he set the coffee tray down. The smell hit first, dark roast and cinnamon. He chatted from the kitchen like a morning radio host. He said traffic was light. He said the day would be fine. He asked if I'd sorted the bank thing. I told him I was looking into it. My voice didn't wobble. He laughed easy, like we were on the same side of the glass. Across the room, my laptop glowed with the tracker dashboard. Another ping. Opened again, 7:18 a.m. Device, iPhone location, residential, SSID, Jenna's Wi-Fi. My pulse didn't spike. It steadied. The pixel didn't care about charm. It cared about truth. Mark slid a cup toward me like a peace offering. He watched my face while I tasted it. The coffee was good. The flavor didn't change the facts. He asked if I was okay. I nodded and watched the way his eyes searched mine for permission to relax. I swallowed and smiled, gentle. People show you who they are when they think you're not looking. I was looking. Every second now was a gift. Evidence isn't loud. It's cumulative. He reached for his gym bag and his phone lit the countertop. The lock screen betrayed him with a preview he couldn't catch in time. Jenna. Organizer, use this one instead. He flipped the phone over like it had burned him. He forced a grin and asked if I wanted breakfast. I said I wasn't hungry. Hunger isn't just for food. It's for clarity. It's for clean endings that don't pretend to be happy. He kissed my forehead and lied about a conference call. The door closed. The apartment exhaled. Another ping landed, softer this time, like a bow on a box I didn't ask for. Opened. 7:26 a.m. Location, Jenna's. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Do I confront the lie now or let it keep writing itself? Would you have waited one more day? I opened a new folder and named it what it already was. Evidence. The kettle screamed. I let it. Steam fogged the window while my hands moved on muscle memory, mug, tea bag, laptop, plan. When love gets loud, strategy has to whisper. I opened a new email identity for a fake vendor, Harbor Row Studio, clean logo, clean signature, nothing flashy. I bought a cheap domain, set a catch-all inbox, and tied a recording line to a new number. If anyone called, the net would tighten without me lifting my voice. I drafted one tidy message to Jenna. Organizer, finalizing lighting schedule. Per yesterday's reroute, please confirm the Autumn Sky Retainer V2. I tucked in a fresh pixel and a unique calendar link for a quick coordination call at 6 p.m. If they were hungry, they'd bite. Would you? Mark came home at noon with a grin that didn't touch his eyes. He set a grocery bag down like a peace treaty, berries, yogurt, a magazine I never read. He asked about my morning. I said it was productive. I asked to use his phone just to update the two-factor on the bank. He froze for one clean second, then smiled too quickly and offered to do it for me. That second was the first crack you can hear if you stop filling the silence. He rummaged in a drawer like the right cable could fix a moral problem. He suggested we have dinner with Jenna to go over the seating chart. The word chart felt like a middle finger. I said I had work and watched relief wash his face. He left to swing by the office. The kettle clicked as it cooled. So did I. At 2, I drove to the venue. The owner met me in her office, a small room with honest light and blunt pencils. I didn't ask her to be a detective. I asked her to be precise. No changes by phone. No reroutes. If a coordinator called, she'd ask for a code phrase only I knew and then hang up. I wrote it on a sticky note, blue ledger. She slid it under her keyboard like a blade. She also admitted something she hadn't said earlier. The voice on the reroute call had said my last name wrong in exactly the way Jenna always did. She'd corrected herself mid-sentence, flustered. The owner had thought it was nerves. Now, she just looked tired for me. You're very calm, she said. I told her calm is a shelter you build when the storm is personal. Back home, I prepped the room like a stage manager. Laptop at eye level, charger plugged, mic tested. I set the calendar link to record automatically. Then I checked the tracker dashboard. At 4:11 p.m. Jenna. Organizer opened the Harbor Row email on Jenna's Wi-Fi. At 4:13, a second open on Mark's iPhone. Choreography again. 2 dancers, 1 song. A small part of me hoped they'd disappoint me by being innocent. That part was shrinking. 6 o'clock arrived with the kind of light that makes you honest. The recording indicator glowed red as the waiting room spun. First entry, Jenna, coordinator, Ashford and Bloom. Her camera was off, her confidence wasn't. 30 seconds later, Mark, client. He left his camera off too. People hide their faces when their voices know the truth will leak. I didn't say a word. I watched the waveform rise and fall while they aligned details. No script, just familiar habits. Jenna spoke fast, stacking words like chairs. Mark cut in with that easy gym lobby tone, telling her to send the updated routing. The bride won't notice math that small. He laughed, light and dismissive. That laugh used to be attractive. Now it just measured the distance between us. They referenced my autumn sky retainer without realizing it was bait. They asked for a refund path if the bride cancels last minute. That last line landed like a cold hand on my shoulder. If the bride cancels wasn't a contingency. It was a plan they'd already priced. My throat tightened, then settled. Pain is a wave. Clarity is the shore. I saved the recording and slid it into the evidence folder. My apartment hummed like a held breath. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. I felt the vibration in my ribs and wondered how many women had heard that same sound and started packing their lives. At 7:02 p.m., the tracker blinked again. The bait invoice was forwarded to a new address I hadn't seen before. Ashford. Accounts. Help. A burner. The system flagged the IP as a co-working space near Mark's office. Busy hands, busy lies. I texted Mark a simple, neutral line. Tomorrow 5 p.m. Venue walkthrough. Please be on time. He replied with a thumbs up and a heart, like a sticker could patch a cracked foundation. I added one more step to the plan. During the walkthrough, every vendor would be present, every invoice printed with heat-sensitive marks. Under normal light, nothing shows. Under a cool phone flashlight, hidden words bloom. If anyone tried to swap, the paper itself would tell on them. Before bed, I stood in the dark kitchen and listened to the refrigerator hum. I could confront them now and get tears, speeches, apologies with no receipts. Or I could keep collecting proof until their story collapsed under its own weight. Which ending would you trust? My phone lit the counter with one last preview before sleep. Jenna, I'll get there early. Perfect. I turned the screen face down and let the room finally go quiet. The venue door sighed when I pushed it at 4:47 p.m. Chairs scraped. Glassware chimed. The kind of sounds that make people hopeful. I stood in it and chose clarity instead. The owner met my eyes, steady as ledger lines. We aligned the plan with one nod. Code phrase ready. Packets ready. Light ready. Vendors trickled in like a quiet parade, florist, photographer, caterer. I handed each a sealed packet with my heat-sensitive marks. Under normal light, they looked boring on purpose. Under a cool phone flashlight, a hidden line would bloom across the footer. Copy only, do not accept reroutes. Paper that could testify, no attitude, just facts. Would you trust paper over charm? Jenna arrived early, exactly as promised. Perfume first, smile second, clipboard last. She introduced herself to the room as our coordinator with the confidence of someone who has never been told no. She reached for the packets the way a magpie reaches for foil, fast, hungry, practiced. The owner stopped her with a pleasant, surgical tone and asked for our code phrase. Jenna blinked, bought herself 2 seconds with a laugh, then tried to guess. She said, blue book. The owner's smile didn't move. She repeated the question. Jenna tried again, faster this time, blue file. Speed is where evidence lives. The owner shook her head with a kindness that cut. No phrase, no authority. Jenna's fingers hovered in the air like they'd lost the map. Mark walked in at 5:02 with his gym lobby voice turned up to warm. He spread his arms like a peace flag and asked if he could help organize the packets. I told him everything was handled. He laughed, soft and easy, and parked himself near the envelopes anyway. His hand brushed one. I let it happen. Traps don't spring when you look at them. They spring when you blink. We moved into the ballroom. The florist pointed out the arch. The photographer tested light. The caterer checked outlets. Normal wedding noise. Under it, A quieter pattern breathed, my tracker pings, my timeline notes, their tiny mistakes stacking like coins. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The bait invoice had been opened again from Ashford. Accounts. Help. Someone was busy while smiling. I asked the vendors to do a quick flashlight check for watermark alignment. Everyone lifted their phones. Cool LEDs swept across paper like moonlight through blinds. The hidden line bloomed where it needed to. I watched Mark watch the words appear. His jaw twitched once, the way people flinch at a cracked step they've used for years. Jenna made a joke about fancy paper. No one laughed. The room had started learning my silence. The venue owner suggested we call the coordinator, who handled yesterday's reroute, just to ensure continuity. She dialed the number saved from that call and tapped speaker. The ring cut through the ballroom like a pin through silk. 1, 2, 3. Then a fourth ring vibrated from inside Jenna's bag. She snatched the purse like a mother grabbing a toddler near traffic. Her smile fell, then scrambled back onto her face, messy and late. Mark coughed. He said there must be a mix-up, a vendor confusion, a silly overlap. His hand found Jenna's elbow the way a script finds its next scene. I watched the florist watch them. I watched the owner write a date across her notepad and underline it twice. I stayed calm because calm is leverage. I asked the owner to read the note she'd placed on our account that morning. She did, clearly. No payment changes accepted without the bride present. Call ends if the code phrase isn't given. She looked at me and asked for the phrase. I gave it, Blue Ledger. Clean, quiet, final. Something in Mark's posture sagged, like a tent losing one stake. I slid a slim document across the table, walked through attendance and authorization. Nothing dramatic. One paragraph said that any third-party coordinator had no payment authority and any attempt to reroute would be logged with vendors and law enforcement. The vendors signed like adults. The owner signed with a small, satisfied breath. I placed 2 pens down for the last signatures. Mark read the paragraph longer than necessary. The corner of his mouth lifted like he was debating a smirk he couldn't afford. He signed. Jenna signed too, her signature sharp and pretty, the way lies often are. Ink dried. Evidence grew. Then the first open fracture appeared. The florist, sweet and meticulous, mentioned that the coordinator had already asked her to bring cash change for a last-minute deposit adjustment. She said it out loud by accident, the way the truth sometimes trips out of careful mouths. The room paused. Jenna's eyes flashed to Mark. Mark looked at the floor. I looked at the florist and thanked her for always being precise. We did a final sweep of the room. Lights dimmed and rose. Music flickered from the ceiling speakers, then cut. Somewhere in the kitchen, metal clinked, a clean, honest sound. The owner handed me a small envelope, my original deposit check, reissued, untouched. She said she'd hold our date if a wire landed by noon tomorrow, no intermediaries. Her eyes were kind but unmovable. I loved her for both. Outside, dusk made everything the same color. Mark offered to walk me to the car. I said I had another vendor to see. He nodded and let the smile hang between us like a door left ajar. Jenna murmured something about confirming the seating chart and drifted toward the parking lot. My phone buzzed again, another open on the Ashford. Accounts. Help account, this time from a different IP near Ironvale. Busy hands. I saved the ping, slid the envelope into my bag, and felt the day align. The trap hadn't snapped shut. Not yet. But the teeth were set, and the room had chosen sides. I sat in my car and watched their silhouettes talk under a streetlight. His hands cut the air, hers clutched the clipboard like a life raft. I could walk over and end it right there, tears, denials, noise. Or I could let tomorrow write a cleaner ending, with everyone looking and no one able to look away. Which would you choose? I started the engine and didn't drive. I smiled instead. The next move wasn't theirs anymore. Morning kept its promise. Cold air, quiet kitchen, clean steps. I brewed coffee and moved money. The venue wire went out at 9:03 a.m., straight and final. I rotated every password like turning locks on a storm door. I removed Mark's device from the bank profile. 2-factor codes stopped going to his pocket. Calm isn't passive, it's precision. Then I opened a new email thread and pulled every vendor into the light. The subject line was neutral on purpose, timeline sync plus final payment protocol. I wrote 3 short lines and let the room build itself. All changes in this thread only, no phone reroutes, live code phrase Blue Ledger on verification. I CC'd the venue owner. I blind copied an archive. Paper isn't loud. It's permanent. Mark texted that he'd swing by to help with logistics. I replied with the group call link at 11 a.m. He sent a thumbs up, the cheapest kind of yes. My tracker dashboard blinked Ashford. Accounts. Help reopen the bait invoice twice before the call. Busy hands hate daylight. 11 o'clock arrived like a clean sheet. Names populated the waiting room: florist, photographer, caterer, venue. Mark, client. Jenna, coordinator. They slipped in camera off. I greeted the vendors, thanked them for time, and read the 3-line protocol again, slow enough to leave footprints. The florist spoke first, sweet and precise. She confirmed the original totals and noted her packet's footer matched my email. She glanced, lifted her phone light, and said the hidden line bloomed exactly as expected. A small, collective nod moved through the grid of faces like a breeze. Jenna jumped in with speed, trying to set the agenda. She said she'd handle any payment pivots today to ease the bride. The venue owner asked for the code phrase. Jenna paused. She laughed. She guessed wrong twice, faster each time, like speed could erase context. The owner's voice stayed gentle and unmovable. No phrase, no authority. Mark tried to smooth it. He suggested a temporary reroute and said he'd reconcile later. I heard the gym lobby tone under his sentence, all comfort, no ledger. I kept mine even. I told the room we would not reroute anything ever. I didn't raise my voice, I raised the standard. Mark said I was overcomplicating. The caterer, quiet until then, mentioned she'd received a request yesterday for cash change at delivery. Her face held apology, not confusion. The grid went still. The owner repeated the rule. Vendors repeated it back. I watched Mark look for a door that wasn't there. Jenna tried a softer script, just trying to help, just trying to keep things moving. She'd always been good at the word just. Now it sounded like a shrinking room. I shared my screen and displayed the reissued deposit confirmation, timestamp, routing receipt. Numbers lined up like soldiers who don't improvise. I let the silence sit long enough for everyone to understand who was in charge of the math. That was the public microfail, not a scream, not a scene, just authority reassigning itself while they stood there, camera off and suddenly small. After the call, I filed the recording into evidence. Then I wrote one tidy note to the registrar hosting Ashford. Accounts. Help. Flagged it as fraud, attached headers, and included the call clip where those words were spoken out loud. Policy loves documentation. So do consequences. At noon, the venue confirmed my wire. The date was officially ours, clean, direct, no intermediaries. The owner added one line that mattered. Any future coordinator attempts would be forwarded to me and to her insurance. Clarity had grown teeth. Mark texted, "We need to talk tonight. Don't be dramatic." He liked that word. Drama is what people call it when their script dies. I answered with logistics only, rehearsal, 6 p.m. Be on time. He replied with a heart. Hearts don't balance books. I spent the afternoon gently closing windows they thought were doors. The bank confirmed device removal. The florist updated her policy note to client present only. The photographer added a line to her contract: no reroutes, no refunds to third parties. Every sentence felt like another stitch in a cut they hadn't seen split yet. At 4:18, the tracker pinged from Ironvale again. My bait reopened, the autumn sky line highlighted in my log. I imagined the chalk dust, the rubber floors, his easy laugh thinning at the edges. Some choices look like flexibility. They're actually collapse rehearsals. I stood by the window and let the late light wash the kitchen. The ring sat in its dish like a coin I could spend on a better story. I wasn't planning a public explosion. I was planning a clean demonstration with witnesses, paper, and timing. The kind that makes lies trip over their own shoelaces. One more message slid across my screen at 4:37, Jenna to the vendor thread, trying to recover face. She thanked everyone for coordinating and said she'd just observed tonight. The word just again. Smaller now. Would you have cut the money first, or the conversation? I closed the laptop and picked up the envelope with our reissued deposit. It felt heavier than paper. Outside, the evening started arranging chairs the way truth arranges itself before it walks in. The rehearsal would begin at 6. I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't need to. The ballroom felt different at 6. Same flowers, same echo, new temperature. I arrived early, handed the owner a neat folder, and we spoke in numbers, not feelings. She understood. Clarity has a sound when it lands. Vendors filtered in easy smiles, focused eyes. I set a slim stack of final copies on a side table, my heat ink versions on top, ordinary blanks beneath, camera watching from a ceiling corner I'd paid extra to activate. If anyone reached for the wrong thing, the room would remember. Mark entered with that friendly, weightless voice he wears like a jacket. He asked if I wanted water, then stood too near the envelopes. Jenna followed, smaller smile than usual, clipboard clutched like a shield. She called the team rock stars and thanked them for flexibility. Flexible is what people say when they want your spine. We began the walkthrough. The florist floated centerpieces into place. The photographer checked light by the arch. The caterer traced outlets with a pen. Normal noise. Beneath it, my phone hummed, Ashford. Accounts. Help pinged again from a co-working IP. Busy hands were still busy. The first slip arrived wrapped as help. Jenna drifted to the caterer, murmuring about one small adjustment for a delivery deposit and tapping the envelope stack with 2 fingers. The caterer smiled, lifted her phone, and swept cool light across the footer. The hidden line bloomed. She thanked Jenna for the reminder, then looked at me, not her. Microclimax, quiet, and clean. Mark tried a softer scene. He suggested moving the rehearsal dinner payment to a temporary card so we could keep cash flow loose. He said he'd reconcile later. His eyes searched my face for permission. I took a breath that tasted like cold metal and repeated the rule. No reroutes, no third-party handling, blue ledger on all verification. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The owner proposed a quick live check. She dialed the coordinator line on speaker. Across the room, a phone vibrated inside Jenna's bag again. The ringtone stabbed the air, then died under Jenna's hand. She smiled too late. Mark said there were 2 numbers. It's confusing. Confusion is a costume. Tonight, it didn't fit. I asked the vendors to sign the final authorization sheet, 1 page, 1 sentence. No payment changes accepted outside this thread. Attempts logged and forwarded. Pens moved. Ink dried. Evidence grew another ring. Then the courier walked in. Black polo, clipboard, branded lanyard that looked credible from 6 feet. He announced an express pickup for a refund packet tied to our booking ID. The owner's eyebrows rose. The caterer froze. Jenna turned slightly, like a magnet feeling north. Mark stepped forward with practiced calm, said he'd take it from here. The courier's eyes flicked to him, too familiar for strangers. I stepped between them with the folder I'd prepared. My hands didn't shake. I asked the courier for the code phrase. He read from the lanyard, blue file. Wrong universe. The owner's voice came in low and steady, asking for ID. The badge wilted under a second glance, barcode printed, not encoded. He tried a joke. No one laughed. Security isn't loud, it's procedural. The owner asked him to wait by the office. He pivoted to leave. Mark offered to escort him, opening a path that bypassed every witness. I said we'd all walk together. The photographer, sweet and surgical, raised her phone and captured the lanyard, the badge, the face. Jenna's grip tightened on her clipboard until the plastic clicked. My phone buzzed, another tracker ping. The bait invoice had just been opened from Ironvale guest Wi-Fi, then forwarded to Ashford. Accounts. Help with a subject line I'd never seen. Refund now, bride canceling. The screen timestamped the message at 6:22 p.m. The courier had arrived at 6:24. I let the silence earn its keep. Then I spoke to the room, not to them. I thanked the vendors for following the protocol. I explained that any refund or reroute would be considered attempted fraud, and that all communications were being archived and shared with the venue's insurer. I didn't accuse. I defined. Mark's jaw set. He said I was making a scene. I said I was making a record. Jenna whispered that I was overreacting. My pulse stayed even. Overreaction is loud. Documentation is quiet. The owner stepped to my side and announced that any further coordination would go through her office only, with me present. She asked the courier again for ID. He hesitated, then chose the door. He moved quickly, the way actors do when they realize the audience has read ahead. Mark tried to follow. I asked him to stay. For the first time all evening, he frowned without remembering to smile after. He said we should talk privately. I said we could after the walkthrough. The florist, bless her honest spine, asked where to place the autumn sky florals. Jenna flinched at the phrase like it stung. Small word, sharp edge. We finished the run-through without drama. The papers sat where I left them. The camera watched. People resumed breathing. Outside, dusk pressed its face to the windows. At the door, Mark leaned close and said the line I knew was coming. We didn't need a big wedding. The stress was too much. Maybe we should cancel and elope, make it simple. He said it like a gift. Simplicity is beautiful when it isn't a fire escape. I told him we'd talk at home at 8. He nodded, relief flashing, calculation right behind it. Jenna said she'd swing by to help pack place cards. I said no. On my screen, the tracker showed a final Ripple Ashford. Accounts. Help disabled, registrar ticket opened, headers attached. Another window closing. Would you confront them now or let the confession come to you? I already knew which one held better audio. I stepped into the night and let the door sigh shut behind me. The room had picked a side. The story had too. By 7:58 the apartment sounded like a museum, soft air, careful light, everything labeled. The ring sat in its dish, catching the lamp like it wanted to testify. I laid out the folder, the reissued deposit, and my laptop. Not weapons, clarifiers. Would you give someone one last clean exit, or none at all? Mark came in at 8 sharp with that easy voice he wears to fix rooms. He asked if I'd eaten. I said we'd talk first. He leaned on the counter like we were casual, like love could be a prop. I kept my hands flat and my words simple. I told him 3 things. The wire cleared, the coordinator number rang from Jenna's bag, and the courier's badge folded under a second glance. I didn't accuse. I defined the facts and watched him choose a story. He picked stress. He picked cash flow. He said the reversal was temporary. He said vendors were flexible. He offered the word bridge like it was the kind of kindness men do with math. Then he tried to make it small, tiny adjustments, no harm, I'd never even feel it. The laugh showed up late and brittle. I let it pass like a weak breeze. I opened the laptop and pressed play, their 6 p.m. coordination call. His voice, her speed, that line about refunds if the bride cancels. It filled the kitchen and made the refrigerator hum sound honest in comparison. He stared at the waveform like it had betrayed him. He said it was out of context. Context didn't change the clock on the screen. He pivoted to Jenna. She'd set it up. She'd made the account. She'd pushed the idea. He'd only tried to smooth. I slid another page across the counter, the registrar ticket with the account metadata and the IP that created it. His office building, Tuesday, 11:06 a.m. He blinked once, calculating. The gym, the guest Wi-Fi, the text preview on his counter. Use this one instead, the pieces lined up without raising their voices. He called me dramatic. People use that word when their script stops working. I kept mine even. I told him we had 2 options. Option A. Tonight he writes a signed statement acknowledging unauthorized reroute attempts by a third party, sends vendor-wide corrections from his own account, and removes himself from all payment responsibilities. We postpone the wedding, not the truth. Option B. I end the engagement and forward evidence to the venue insurer, my bank's fraud unit, and, if necessary, his HR. I wasn't angry. I was precise. He dropped his eyes to the ring dish and said we didn't need a big wedding. He offered elopement again, like simplicity could mop a stain. I didn't move. He asked what I wanted. I told him I wanted math that didn't bleed. Silence has a shape when it settles. He pulled his phone out and called Jenna on speaker without warning, like loyalty could be performed. It rang once, twice, then voicemail. He tried again. This time it connected, audio thin. He asked her to come over and clear this up. She paused just long enough to tell on herself, then said her lawyer told her not to discuss payment administration. Lawyer. Administrator. New costumes already. He went quiet. The first clean crack echoed between them, small and final. He ended the call and tried indignation. I held the line. I placed a single sheet in front of him, 2 sentences, 3 blanks for signatures. No theatrics. He read it, swallowed, and said he needed time. Time is what people ask for when they mean leverage. I stood up, took my phone, and sent a scheduled email to the vendor thread and the venue owner. If I don't send a countermand by 12 a.m., please consider the attached a formal report. The message sat in my outbox like a loaded clock. I let him watch me set it. He said I was threatening him. I said I was protecting the work everyone else did honestly. My heart beat hard, then leveled. There's a calm that only arrives after you stop negotiating with your own doubt. He slammed a cabinet door and called it an accident. I didn't flinch. He grabbed his jacket and said he'd get advice. Advice is the echo men pick when they don't want to hear the word consequence. He left at 9:12. The door closed with a sound I won't forget, like a lid finding a box. The apartment exhaled. I turned the faucet on and off just to hear something I could control. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from an unknown number that didn't feel unknown. He's going to blame me. Meet me tomorrow. Without him. Jenna always loved the center of the room. Now she wanted a smaller stage. I took a photo of the message and filed it where everything else lives. The scheduled email ticked silently in the outbox. Outside, a siren passed and then faded. Would you have met her or let the paperwork finish the job? I turned off the kitchen light and left the ring exactly where it could see the morning. The cafe sounded like safety, cups clinking, milk hissing, nobody caring about my life. I chose a table facing the door and set my phone on airplane mode with the recorder already rolling. Not paranoia, procedure. Would you trust memory over a file? Jenna arrived 5 minutes early and 2 shades smaller. No big laugh, no sweeping arms. She wore guilt like a heavy scarf. She said we should clear the air. I told her air doesn't clear itself. She smiled at the table, not at me. I kept it simple. I said I wanted the truth in order, who made the burner account, who called vendors, where the refunds were supposed to land. I didn't say why. I let silence do the asking. It worked. People rushed to fill honest quiet. She started with a story about helping, about saving me from wedding math and vendor friction. She used the word just 3 times in one sentence. I let the word dry in her mouth. Then I placed a printout on the table, the registrar ticket with Creation IP, Tuesday, 11:06 a.m., Mark's building, and a still frame of the courier's badge from last night. The table got very still. Her eyes flicked like she was picking a door. She tried the Mark panicked door. She said he was covering gaps and would settle later. She said the burner account was temporary. She said temporary like it's a parachute, not a knife. I pushed a second page across, email headers, the refund now bride canceling subject, the 6:22 p.m. timestamp 5 minutes before the courier walked in. She stopped choosing doors. She put both hands around her cup so tightly the cardboard groaned. When she finally talked, it came out flat. She admitted the Gmail handle. She admitted the coordinator act. She admitted the phone reroutes. She said Mark told her vendors prefer speed, that small deltas disappear in the noise, that I wouldn't notice shifts that didn't change outcomes. She looked at me to see if that landed. It didn't. I asked where the money would have gone. She said the refunds would land in the burner, then settle to his business account to manage cash flow, then back to the venue if needed. She said if like it earned a salary. I slid a napkin toward her and asked for the last 4 digits of that business account. She spoke them without blinking. People don't know numbers they've never seen. Microclimax, clean and small. I showed her the tracker map, Irevale pings, her Wi-Fi pings, the co-working opens. She flinched at Autumn Sky Retainer like the word burned. She asked if that was fake. I didn't answer. The lesson didn't require my voice. She pivoted to defense through sentiment, said she'd only wanted to be useful, that Mark promised she'd finally get credit for running things, that he called her the calm one when I got too detailed. She said they never crossed a line. Then she added a sentence that betrayed her: we never spent the night. People who never cross lines don't measure nights. I kept my face still. The room hissed milk. I took out a one-page cooperation letter, plain type, 3 checkboxes. A. Jenna acknowledges misrepresentation as coordinator and unauthorized payment reroute attempts. B. She provides full access to the burner account, forwards all threads to my archive, and deactivates it on camera. C. She sends a vendor-wide correction from her personal email admitting misrepresentation and confirming that only I authorize payments, attaching her statement. In return, I note her cooperation in any report and keep her name out of HR unless compelled by policy. Would you sign this? I asked. She stared at the page like it had thorns. She asked if Mark would see it. I said he'd see whatever the vendor saw. She said he'd melt down. I said that was a temperature, not a reason. She hesitated long enough to tell me which fear was heavier. Then she signed, hand shaking just once at the end like a small earthquake under a big building. We moved to the operational part. I slid my laptop around, started a screen recording, and handed her the keyboard. She logged into Jenna Organizer and winced while the inbox populated subject lines like little knives. She forwarded every thread to my archive address. She exported a mailbox file. She deleted saved numbers labeled venue owner, florist, caterer, each with her own SIM icon. She opened the phone app and read the outgoing call list into my mic. The timestamps matched my pings. Paper met breath. Then I asked for the courier contact. She hesitated, then opened a Telegram chat labeled runner with a shoe emoji. She read the handle and the last message: 624 pickup, refund packet, bride will cancel. I captured the screen. She said Mark found him through a guy at Irevale. I didn't ask for the guy. I had enough doors. For the last step, she typed a vendor-wide message from her personal email. She kept it short because I told her short is honest. She wrote that she had misrepresented herself as coordinator, attempted unauthorized changes, and that all payments must follow my written protocol with the code phrase Blue Ledger. She copied the venue owner and attached her signed statement. I watched her cursor hover before send like it wanted to be forgiven. She clicked anyway. Microclimax, audible only to the recorder. She asked if I'd tell Mark. I said his phone would tell him. We sat with that for a breath. The cafe door opened and closed. The milk hissed again. Someone laughed at a table that wasn't ours. Then she reached for her last piece of leverage confession by Ration. She said Mark had promised to propose a simple elopement after the rehearsal to avoid weddings being expensive illusions. He'd planned to say we should cancel for stress, then push the refund through the burner that night. She said my schedule email ruined the timing. She said it like a compliment she didn't want to give. I didn't flinch. I asked one final question. If he asks you to deny all of this, will you? She looked at the door instead of me and said, he'll blame me anyway. It wasn't an answer. It was a forecast. We packed the moment back into objects, pens, pages, a laptop with a full, stitched recording. I slid the cooperation letter into evidence. I asked her to deactivate the burner account while I watched. She did. The screen said account deleted in a font that finally felt useful. At the exit, she paused. She asked if I thought I'd still marry him. I said I wasn't in the market for salvage. She nodded like she'd known that before I did. Outside, the air had that bright, cold honesty I've learned to trust. My phone woke up from airplane mode to a burst of signals. Vendor replies confirming receipt, the venue owner's thank you for clarity, and one brand new text from Mark. We need to present a united front. Don't talk to anyone. He sent it 6 minutes after Jenna hit send. Would you answer a man who only texts commands? I didn't reply. I forwarded Jenna's statement to my scheduled midnight email and moved the send time up to 9:30 p.m. The clock started ticking again, loud to me, silent to him. On the walk home, another notification landed. Jenna had shared a budget hack note from her phone, a private list of tiny deltas and split amounts labeled Ashford/J, dates, and percentages. The last line froze me for a beat. Post-cancel split 60-40. No subject. No shame. I stopped under a streetlight and let the cold soak my hands until the choice felt simple again. Part of me wanted to blow the whole thing open right then. A bigger part wanted the cleanest ending possible. I opened my notes app and wrote 2 words for tomorrow's plan. Public record. At 9:30 p.m., the scheduled email left my outbox like a quiet flare. Subject: Public record, payment protocol plus evidence index. Vendors, venue, insurer address, my bank's fraud unit, and a read-only archive link with hashes. Jenna's signed statement attached. The recordings labeled and timestamped. No adjectives. Just order. Would you trust anything less? Morning answered fast. The venue confirmed my wire and issued an incident number from their insurer. My bank assigned a fraud case ID and froze any refund attempts tied to the burner. 2 vendors replied with simple gratitude, thanks for clarity. Policy likes paperwork. So do consequences. By 11 a.m., the venue hosted a compliance review on video owner, vendors, their broker, me. A square labeled Mark joined camera off. Another square labeled Jenna arrived, small and steady. I opened the archive and walked the room through the clean spine of the story. Routed calls, tracker pings, the courier's badge, the 6 o'clock audio. Then I put the budget hack note on screen, the one Jenna shared by mistake. Tiny deltas, split percentages, and the last line stamped in plain font, post-cancel split 60/40ths. That was the first audible inhale. Mark tried charm, then context, then misunderstanding. He framed it as efficiency and offered the word temporary until it sounded like static. The broker asked a precise question about beneficiaries and intent. I didn't answer. Jenna did, flat voice, eyes down. She confirmed the burner, the forwardings, the courier coordinate from Iredale. She said Mark told her vendors prefer speed and numbers clean themselves later. The room went very still, the way crowds do when they decide who's speaking the truth. Microclimax, neat and inevitable. I shared one last screen, my formal withdrawal of his payment authority, signed yesterday, with vendor countersigns. The owner read her policy line. No third-party reroutes, any attempts forwarded to the insurer and, if needed, to law enforcement. She added that our date remains secure because I'd wired directly. Calm has a sound when it lands. A corporate address popped into my inbox mid-call, HR compliance from Mark's company. They acknowledged receipt of my packet containing the registrar log with his office IP and noted an internal review. I didn't gloat. I logged the time, the subject, the ticket number, and moved on. Paper cuts add up. Mark finally showed his face. He asked for a united front and said public record would hurt everyone. I said public record protects the people who did their work honestly. My voice stayed level. Jenna whispered that she was sorry to the vendors, not to me. That was enough. The owner closed the call with a summary that sounded like a verdict. Original payments stand. Reroute attempts documented. Future contact through her office with me present. She thanked me for clarity. She thanked Jenna for cooperation. She didn't thank Mark. After the call, the ripples kept their shape. The registrar confirmed Ashford. Accounts. Help was deleted and preserved via legal hold. My bank flagged the business account digits Jenna provided. Any incoming from that path would trip the case. The courier's handle went dark, blocked, archived. Doors closing softly, one by one. At 2:10 p.m., Mark texted a paragraph without punctuation. Stress. Love. Mistakes. Elopement. Simplicity dressed like mercy. He said we could still fix it if I stopped escalating. I looked at the ring in its dish and thought about how metal remembers pressure. Fixing isn't the same as hiding. By 5 p.m., the venue sent a clean updated contract, my signature only, blue ledger codified as the sole verification phrase. The florist added a line to hers, "No refunds to third parties under any circumstance." The photographer followed. Small sentences, strong locks. I printed one sheet I'd written last night and left in drafts. Notice of termination of engagement, 2 paragraphs, for bullet points, no insults. I folded it into an envelope with the ring receipt and a photocopy of the insurer's incident number. I booked our building's conference room for 7:15 p.m. I wanted a neutral table and a clock that didn't blink. On the way downstairs, a neighbor's radio leaked a love song through the stairwell. The melody sounded like it knew me once. I let it pass without catching. He was already there, jacket hung on the chair back, empty glass, eyes busy. He started with the word "we" and tried to put me inside it. I kept my hands on the envelope and my sentences short. I set the termination notice on the table, then the ring. He reached for apology, then for anger. Both fell through the same hole. He asked if I was doing this over money. I told him I was doing it over math, little lies pretending to be logistics. He said I was throwing away our future. I told him he'd already mortgaged it. He stared at the ring like it might light up. It didn't. The conference room clock clicked towards 7:20. I felt my heartbeat find that rhythm and settle there. One last thing. I took out a small, labeled USB, hash printed on the side, and placed it near the envelope. A read-only copy of the archive for his records. He looked confused, then wounded, then something else I didn't recognize anymore. He asked what I'd tell people. I said I'd tell the truth without the parts that didn't belong to me. He asked if there was a world where I forgave him. I said forgiveness and proximity are not the same thing. I stood. The chair legs whispered against the carpet. He didn't follow. Some endings don't want movement, they want accuracy. Outside, the evening kept its cool. Streetlights hummed. My phone buzzed once, the owner confirming that all vendor acknowledgements were logged and filed. Order, closing its file. Would you miss someone who loved the shortcuts more than the road? I pressed the elevator button and watched the numbers descend toward me. The doors opened like a clean breath. I stepped in and let them close. The elevator doors sighed open like a tired apology. I stepped out with the envelope, the USB, and hands that didn't shake anymore. The hallway smelled like cleaner and cold metal. Somewhere, a neighbor's blender roared and then stopped. Small noises. A life resetting its volume. Morning tested me with pings. The venue sent final confirmation, incident logged, date released at my request, deposit secured on my side, no intermediaries, no drama. My bank added a line to the fraud case, attempted refunds blocked, any coordinator calls flagged to a named investigator. The registrar preserved the burner under legal hold. Doors didn't slam. They closed softly, one by one. Then HR compliance returned with a single careful sentence, administrative leave while they review access logs. Not my victory, just gravity. Paper falls the same way every time. I took the ring to the jeweler at lunch and watched the clerk nestle it back into the world like a bird returning to a tree it didn't choose. The receipt slid toward me with a soft hiss. I kept the hiss. I left the sparkle. Would you have kept the ring or the lesson? Back home, the apartment breathed different. I opened the windows and let the cold come in. I took the seating chart off the fridge and replaced it with a grocery list. I moved the evidence folder from desktop to an external drive and labeled the copy with a date, a hash, and 2 words, case closed. It wasn't revenge. It was record-keeping. Jenna sent one last email to the vendor thread without flourish, cooperation complete, access surrendered, apologies made. She CC'd me and the owner, then signed off with a plain first name that finally sounded like a person, not a role. 5 minutes later, she sent a separate note to me alone. She'd booked counseling. She would not contact me again. I forwarded it to the archive and wished her well in silence. Closure doesn't need an audience. Mark tried a different route. A late-night paragraph with the shape of remorse and the content of negotiation. If we cancel the report, if we start fresh, if we remember why we said yes. He asked if I could meet him where we first had coffee. I read the words twice. They looked like food coloring in water, bright for a second, then nothing. I replied with 2 sentences. The engagement is over. any communication about the case should go through his HR or the insurer. He wrote back a single word: cold. That's what people call weather they didn't dress for. The next day, I kept my appointment at the venue. The ballroom waited, big and honest. The owner handed me the cancellation confirmation and didn't try to fill the quiet with sympathy. We stood there a minute, just listening to the room not lie to us. She said she hoped I still used a ledger in whatever came next. I said I would. She smiled like someone who respects math more than charm. On the way out, I paused under the arch where the florist had measured light. I could almost hear the music we'd planned. I let that ghost finish its measure and then leave. I don't collect hauntings. I collect receipts. At home, I rebuilt the budget spreadsheet into something else. I renamed tabs with clean nouns: rent, savings, travel, classes. I moved the wedding fund to a column called Future and hid no cells. I booked a solo weekend 3 towns over where the water is loud and the rooms have small, square windows that open all the way. I packed light: 1 bag, 1 notebook, 1 pen. A blue notebook. A ledger of sorts. The first night there, the heater clicked like a metronome while the ocean made its old, patient argument outside. I wrote down everything I'd learned, not to perform wisdom, but to hear it out loud. Silence can be a strategy, not a surrender. Numbers don't love you. They serve you if you let them. People show you their values in small deltas. Believe the tiny change. If someone calls your boundaries dramatic, they've already crossed them. Revenge is noisy. Justice can whisper. A text arrived from an unknown number that wasn't unknown. They suspended me. Hope you're happy. I turned the phone face down and finished my list. Happiness isn't the metric. Peace is. On Sunday, I walked the pier until my ears stung and my lungs felt brand new. I bought a hot drink from a stand with a hand-painted sign and wrote one more line in the notebook: I don't need a wedding to practice vows. Then I listed mine: to choose clarity over charm, process over pressure, questions over fear. To never apologize for the size of my standards. To keep my ledger blue and my life simpler than any story that needs fixing. When I got back, the apartment had learned my new routine. Coffee, window, desk. I answered 3 vendor emails that didn't need me anymore and one from the owner with a photo of the ballroom reset for a different couple: joy and progress. It made me smile in a way that didn't borrow anything from pain. I boxed the leftover decor and left it by the door for pickup. The clipboard went last. It still had a faint thumbprint where someone clutched it too hard and too long. I wiped it clean without a ceremony. Objects don't hold the story unless you let them. That night I cooked something simple and ate it slowly, cheeks warm from the stove. I didn't replay the call. I didn't touch the archive. I watched steam lift from the plate and let my mind stand still inside the room I'd kept. There's a high you get from surviving chaos. It fades. What stays is the low, steady hum of a life that doesn't need rescuing. If you're listening for a secret, it's this: most endings don't explode. They land softly, like envelopes on a table, like a line item balancing to 0, like doors choosing their hinges. You don't have to love that. You can just count it and then choose what's next. He lost access. She found a voice. I kept the quiet. And finally, I slept.